Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back to another episode of Cal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is, of course, Rob McConnell. Now, again, as I say at the top of every episode, again, because it's true, the purpose of the show is to cover everything from politics to the paranormal. Not only do a wide variety of subjects, they cover my spectrum range of interests, but we cover a lot of different things from politics to the paranormal because that's a lot of stuff and it gives us a lot of opportunity. And I think in this internet age, people are especially tuned in more than they've ever been. What they're tuning into is another issue entirely. So what we're going to talk about today is absolutely politics. It impacts political, social issues, global issues, because what's going on now in communist China with the outbreak of the coronavirus, there's some very fascinating issues going on here. They both share two major entities. In other words, it's a binary issue. One, there's an outbreak of a deadly disease. Now, we'll get into the definition of deadly in a bit. But regardless of what that disease is, there are certain things that are done, that must be done, that are always done as a standard procedure, a set of them, especially when it becomes an epidemic and it goes to other countries. So what we're going to do is go through the latest updates on some figures, and then we're going to announce here on the show for the first time that I am certainly helping Rob in a investigation that I think you can expect if you know him and you know the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Rob has regularly issued important updates on what's going on because this is an important issue. There is a deadly virus out there that has never been seen to jump from wherever it came from, of course, non-humans to humans. And there are everything from claims out there. I've been getting the data. I'm going to share it with you. In fact, everything I'm going to share with you on here is not a Kal Korff investigation. Yeah, I'm involved. Why wouldn't I be? Especially if I can maybe separate fact from fiction. It's not my first rodeo down that road. But working with Rob on this, I'm going to share with you some of the stuff that we're just going to go public with. And just stay tuned, especially to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and you will have the updates on these important areas. Now, first of all, let's get the facts out of the way. These are updated as much as just a few minutes before we started recording this. Now, you have to remember that there are at least minimum 10,000 cases in China. Every single province has been hit by this virus. Nearly 300 people have died, okay? And it has gone globally. There is a minimum of 80,000 cases, a popular number being, thrown about as 70,000. Some people say more than. My sources in Asia, which come from India, neighboring India, and of course, been there for 7 years, so a lot of contacts. I also have contacts in the other side of it, China, but of course, it's very different there because you can't be open, let's be blunt, and we'll come to that issue in a bit. But surprisingly so far, this virus hasn't spread to India. And a key element of this virus, ironically, is an element that is a threat to the safety and security. Let's consider well-being, being able to live a healthy, happy life, the right kind of life, as security for the human race. I'm sorry, when you go to India, you go to China, you take a huge step down. I don't care where you go. Where it concerns basic things like hygiene, you see along the roads dead animals that they're, hanging up there to sell or whatever. People buy them, but they're dusted with whatever drove by. I've seen it. I've got hundreds and hundreds of tapes and videos of this stuff. And believe me, it wasn't just for my personal collection. Now that a lot of my archive is being put online, excuse me, on the new websites, kalkorff.com. Yes, they're back again, folks. And of course, criticalthinkers.org. I assure you a lot of stuff is going to come out from 27 countries and 20 years, more than 20 years. My God, I've been in this field 47 years. Someone had to remind me of that today because Roswell happened in 1947. Anyway, so about China, more than 75,000 cases. It's really 80,000 have been going on. And it hasn't surprisingly spread to India. Well, once it does, folks, it can actually magnify to the point where it just cannot be controlled until a lot of people end up dying, and that is terrible. So in the Wuhan province alone, and yes, that's the province where that secret, military weaponization biolab does exist, let's be honest, may or may not have something to do with this. We'll address that in a bit because it is important, because that's what people are claiming. What matters is the truth. The claim is something, it must be investigated for reasons that if it's not true, people need to know that. If it is true, even more people need to know that. Anyway, at least 10,000 cases in Wuhan, over 200 deaths, okay? And every province in China has been hit, all right? And in the U.S., as of tonight, there's been 7 cases now. You have California, you've got Washington, you've got Arizona, you've got Illinois. Again, it's continuing. And then, of course, the U.S. has imposed a travel ban. If you've been to China or Asia, depending on what your roots were, you may have gone through China for the last 14 days, then you're banned. You can't do that. You'll be examined, etc. So they have declared a public health emergency. This is absolutely the right thing to do. Now, here's where the first problem begins. Regardless of what's going on, the U.S. has declared a national health emergency. That's pretty serious, regardless of what the disease is. Now, what is the World Health Organization doing? Well, they announced in their infinite wisdom that, it's not really that much of a serious problem yet. It doesn't quite meet that criteria. So we're just going to stand by for another couple of days and not make that declaration the U.S. made, because we're just not going to do that. It's just not serious enough yet. But yet the world's only superpower has said it is a crisis. It is now in, I'm going to tell you how many countries this thing is in. It hasn't spread, of course, to every one of them, but that's not the point. The point is that it is in mainland China. There's 10,000 cases there. It's in Hong Kong. Yes, that's different. Macau, Australia, Cambodia, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, India. Ooh, India has 1 case. Oh, it'll be God's grace, literally, if it ends up being in single digits. Italy, 2, Japan, 17 cases. Malaysia, Nepal, Philippines, Russia, Singapore. Russia, by the way, has closed key border points that it shares with China. Russia is at least that smart. The World Health Organization isn't yet. Singapore, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Taiwan, Thailand, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, that would be Great Britain for those who don't know the difference, United States, of course, and then Vietnam. Again, the World Health Organization doesn't think this is worthy of taking seriously yet, to the point that they should. So that is the first problem with this. And I think people need to, raise this issue, complain about it, whatever it takes. On the other hand, the virus, because it isn't being taken globally, because this key organization just isn't going to go there yet, the virus, I think, will kind of force the World Health Organization to finally get off its you-know-what and do its job. Now, let's talk about the virus itself. Problem number 2. The last time that something like this happened was when the SARS virus broke out, not surprisingly, in China, and over 800 people died. Okay? Big problem, regardless of the cause. But what was the cause? The cause was improper hygiene. And when I'm talking about improper hygiene, let me tell you from firsthand travel experience on 4 continents where in the spectrum this problem is, because I'm not making this up. And I've documented all of this because I knew one day, I would do something where put this stuff out there. And I'm not the only one. You can Google anything I'm going to say, and you'll see God knows how many examples of what I'm talking about. Now, again, in Asia, not only do they eat almost anything compared to the West, that's a fact. They eat a far more wider variety of things than the West does. However you want to describe it, it's a fact. Lizard on a stick is quite common, folks. Drinking snake's blood, well, that's good for the virility, right? Anyway, there's some amazing stuff that they do, and it's just not my kind of thing. I even wrote an article one time on shish kebabs, which are very popular in India. And of course, they eat more of them than they do anywhere in the world because of population. But I warn people that, depending on where you travel to, not all shish kebabs are the same. So what I pointed out in my article is that in Syria, they're made of testicles, okay? And they're consist of the lining of the stomach, intestines, they stuff the stuff in there. So when you want meatballs, well, there's a double entendre there. You better check what kind of meat they're giving you. And you really have to check because it's no big deal to them. But, how many people want to eat testicles, meatballs, spaghetti? I don't know. Some people do, whatever. But that's the way it is. So there is this very key different cultural thing there. There is a phrase in India, it's global actually, called Delhi belly, because if you eat the street food there, trust me, it was my first occurrence of it, was in Delhi, right up the street from my hotel. And this was near the airport, the so-called civilized area. And, I only had my stomach problems with food in India. I'm being blunt. Because the hygiene there is a problem. In fact, when I first moved into the first luxury apartment, which had security, guards, everything, right near the military base, which made my phone, internet stuff, oh man, that was another story. Anyway, what happened was at this thing, they didn't even have toilet paper because they don't use it. They had to order it because I lived there. Yeah, it was that kind of life. Anyway, we'll come back after the commercial here because it turns out that the sanitarium problem, the hygiene, caused the virus.
Patty Conklin grew up in Brooktondale, New York with a unique ability. Unlike others, she could see how the vibration of words and emotions affected the physical body. She discovered how to release stored emotion and facilitate healing. This began today's Conklin method of cellular cleansing. The private practice grew with tremendous results, as did her reputation. More and more people sought her out, bringing her into the home for healing. She soon realized she could even teach this to others, and they could shift perception and thus prevent illness from occurring. Patty Conklin quickly became a frequent keynote speaker, and she developed a curriculum for teaching the Conklin method of cellular cleansing. For more information, visit pattyconklin.com. PattiConklin, PattiConklin.com, or call 404-474-0086. That's 404-474-0086.
Mission Evolution is dedicated to the well-being of the planet and animals, as well as the evolution of humankind. One major factor threatening all three is increasing toxicity. Heavy metals and other environmental toxins are poisoning our bodies, deteriorating our brains, blocking our spiritual connection, and shortening our lives. Yet these poisons are extremely difficult to remove. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, and I recently became aware of a product created from the marriage of nature and nanotechnology called Vitality. It's formulated from zoolite, whose crystalline structure binds toxins, gently carrying them out of the body. The light is only as clear as the window through which it shines. Clear your body, shine your light into the world. Visit vitalityhappens.com for a 20% discount. Enter code PATHHOME.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Okay, we're back to the second segment here on Kal's Corner Radio Show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we were talking about hygiene and health issues in Asia, in India, and, of course, communist China. I'm not mincing words because I have been to these parts of the world. I have seen them firsthand, and the worst pollution, which caused health problems for me, very real, only in India. I had eye infections for years, for example, because of the pollution. They stopped whenever I would travel out of India. I loved leaving the country just to have a standard of living higher in the Middle East. And that was not a hotbed of, let's say, quiet region. So the point is, I'll give you one example of what they would do. And this is common in China. And this has a direct bearing on how this disease has now become an epidemic. What they would do, where I lived, because they were developing this area, because India is growing, under Modi, and it is. There are enormous construction projects going on that dwarf anything you'll ever see in the West. We're talking kind of Grand Canyon-size blocks of huge apartments, 100,000 of them in a block. There's nothing like it in the West. And of course, they have a housing shortage. India is going to pass China in population very shortly. And they've managed to pass China in overall pollution and filth and quality of life, and how it kills millions of people every year because they just refuse to do the right thing. So let me give you one example. When they build an apartment complex, they use bricks because they take advantage in Punjab of the fact that there's really not a lot of strong earthquakes. So they make these bricks. Well, instead of trucking them in from a factory like a sane country, I'm sorry, they build a brick factory right there, in my case, across the street, okay? And then you got this billowing smoke going on because they're making bricks 24/7 or whatever until they build the thing. And then depending on, what time of year they try to do it, how many people do or don't show up, I've seen it all. They have women wearing saris, carrying bricks on their heads, 8 at a time. Now, I take 8 bricks, 8 standard red bricks, pairs of 2, ladies, put it on your head, put your hands up there so they don't fall, and walk from point A to point B, and that's how they build buildings over there. I've got all this documentation. So this factory pollutes everything. I posted photos of that, I think, a couple weeks ago, because we were talking about how committed India was to the Paris Accord. Imagine what they would be, folks, if they didn't sign the global warming agreement that's saving the planet. Anyway, so after they pollute, however, for however long, then they take this factory down and then they move it to their next construction destination. And it's perfectly legal. And one of the reasons I have this documentation is because I filed a complaint with the authorities. And I went down there to complain. They said, we can't do anything. That's the way it is. Like, there's no issue here. Okay, fine, it's their country. I can't do anything. But I'm sorry, it's wrong. So when I first moved to India, Beijing, China held the world's record for the most polluted city on the planet. And congratulations, socialism and communism. You're doing a whatever job, the worst job possible, and nobody's stopping them. China says, well, we don't have the money to clean our act up. We need money from the West. Well, yeah, okay. And we're stupid enough to do that. The U.S. still gives tens of millions of dollars to China in the form of foreign aid, let alone its manufacturing future, outsourcing it entirely. Independent of those issues, Beijing, remember the Olympics they had? They had to actually ban cars and bring in stuff to suck out the air because they wouldn't let the athletes breathe that stuff. God bless them for that. They were being generous, for the time of the Olympics. And then it's back to being the world's polluter again. Try going to Delhi. You better hold your nose from the freeway, which you get stuck on for hours if you mistime it. Of course, it's too many cars, just physics. And there's the big dump there. It's so big that it blocks everything. It's like a huge mountain. And, you're there even in the dark because all of a sudden the stars are blotted out or those other lights. It's a huge mountain of just trash in the open. And there's 2 or 3 tractors there doing all the work. And you're like, wow, how do those guys even live? And they're not wearing a mask, of course. They don't wear masks to cover their faces over there unless it's a disease like this that has broken out. And on the main road of where I lived, again, I got all this documented. You see chickens and all that other stuff on the side, and they're just getting blasted as all these cars go by because they don't even pave a lot of the roads because, why should they? And then they would only do that before election time anyway. I remember right in front of the street I lived on, all of a sudden these street lights showed up, and we're like, damn, they're becoming, civilized, or the level of existence that should be universal, folks. Doesn't matter what country it is. Don't even go there. And then after the election, those streetlights disappeared. It's like, who cut the city order for that? It was like, wow. And I didn't bother pursuing it because when I went down to the paper and told people about it, they told me a story, and it was in the news, that the only way to get the potholes painted in India was to take spray paint and draw or paint the shape of a male penis. And then the officials would become so offended because they're sexually tabooish over there. Yes, they are. The Kama Sutra is not even a deal over there, and they're certainly not into that over there. So it was doing this, graffitiing in this style, putting human body parts, sexual body parts on there, that caused the officials to say, wow, I guess we should plug that hole and get rid of that paint. That's the kind of stuff they had to do. I would remember when every time it rained, it'd be, oh my God, now I can't get to work, regardless of whether it's, on a rickshaw, and it could be everything from a horse or a donkey pulling that. That was actually fun sometimes, to 2 donkeys. And then, of course, the guy in the bicycle who weighs 80 pounds. And, I'm sorry, I was like 270 at that time, embarrassingly so. So there were just times where, you couldn't get anywhere because he can't pedal. It's just the way it is over there. So what happened when I was in India, I think it was year 5, I wrote some story for Daily World about how Delhi had now stolen the record from Beijing, and they're now the most polluted city on the planet. Congratulations. You guys are even more talented than the Communist Chinese Party. And then it turns out that India, by the year 2010, by the year 2017, had most of the world's top largest polluted cities in the top 10. They were like the Beatles, okay, of the polluted cities. And of course, a lot of people die because they have respiratory problems. I had boils, I had skin infections. It was one thing after another because of the quality of life there. Haha, yeah. So when the mosquitoes were killing people, and I lost friends to mosquito bites, they used to laugh at me because I would carry an electronic zapper with me everywhere. I remember when I was the principal at Noble World School in Dioria, right near the border of Nepal. And there's only one paved road in the whole area, and that's because the hotel paid for it, okay? And I would go into the bathroom, and of course, you can't sit anywhere because they don't have that kind of toilet. You have to squat. I didn't have to squat, but to go in there, I had to turn the zapper on, and it sounded like a machine gun going off and all the sparks and everything. I had to clear out all the mosquitoes before I could buy 20 seconds apiece to finish my business and then go back to, whatever the school was doing. And that was the kind of life there. I remember at night as a guest, there were no windows in the house. So guess what happened at night when people turned the lights on? The insects had their fun. And for some reason, the insects loved my blood more than any Indians. And the joke was because I drank too many Pepsis. These are real stories, folks. So the reason I'm going into all of this is because in China, in India, so many people die of these infectious diseases that have become so bad now because of human stupidity that they're jumping between animals and humans when nature itself had a normal boundary between these different viruses. But no, we've become so clever because we don't do what's right. And what is right is so obvious. Think about it. How many times a day do you wash your hands? What's the number? Well, it should be several times a day, okay? And you must know that there is a difference between a virus and a bacteria. So if you take something for a bacteria that your problem is really a virus, you might as well take nothing because it's not relevant. And people mix the two like they're the same thing, and they're not. Viruses are the oldest and most primitive, the very first known life forms ever on Earth. And I encourage you to go to Google and search images of virus. They're like aliens from space. They're just really bizarre. They're amazing, folks. And what the virus does is it tries to make a copy of itself at your expense. It injects its DNA into your cells, kills yours, or co-ops it, or tries to do whatever with it, and that result makes you sick. And then when it realizes it can't do anymore, or your body generates defenses and so on, or even then it may not wait, it jumps to another host because it needs a host to survive and try to reproduce. Otherwise, it's gone and dead. And some viruses are so stupid, they'll kill their hosts, like the AIDS virus. It ultimately kills itself unless it manages to spread. It kills itself by choice. It thinks it's doing the right thing, consuming the host that is allowing it to thrive. Okay, we'll be back after this commercial break, and we'll get into the myths about this virus and get back to how China has to start following health standard laws.
Audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Join Patty Conklin and Healing Within Radio each week. More than entertainment, Healing Within offers educational, useful tools for everyday life. Listen for help overcoming fear, anxiety, and depression. Patty knows about eliminating cancer, MS, dementia, Parkinson's, and a host of illnesses that we face every day. Life can be good. Life is good. All you need are simple tools to start changing your life. Start right now by visiting pattyconklin.com, PATTICONKLIN. No matter where you are in the world, you can work with Patty through Skype, phone, or in person, visiting one of her retreats in Georgia. Visit pattyconklin.com today or call our offices at 404-474-0086. That's pattyconklin.com or call 404-474-0086.
Coming soon to the X Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show and the X Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff. The executive producer of the show is, of course, Rob McConnell. Now, we were talking about hygiene, lack of health standards in Asia as a whole. It's not just communist China that's guilty. Let's be blunt. India will soon be more guilty because they'll have more people who do this. Now, I'm going to share with you two more examples of what goes on there. And this little thing kills a lot of people every year, millions of them, willfully, because they just do it. Now, if you go to Punjab, which is a huge state in India, and of course it goes beyond the Pak border. Don't even get me started on the Pak border. But anyway, in Punjab, in the big cities, Ludhiana, which is, I think, the second or third most polluted city in India, which is saying a lot. That was the first city I had the pleasure of living in. And then I would commute 5 hours every day to Daily Post and do all the stuff there and then go back. And what they do in Punjab is when there's a lot of street food, most Indians will go outside and someone's cooking on the ground, whatever, and they squat down there and or sit Indian style, that's what they call it. And they have tea, they eat boiled eggs, they, use pond, they do whatever, all this stuff. It's really delicious food when it's, done, the right way, and that means with hygiene. But that's not what most Indians do. They have street food. I learned the fine art, thanks to my Indian friends, of which street food wouldn't get me sick, but it still wasn't up to Western standards, versus the ones that, because I wasn't Indian, I would just lay me out. And yes, I must say that a lot of them, based on what I went through, and I, again, have been to 27 countries on 4 continents, boy, their immune systems are very strong over there compared to ours. On the other hand, they're very weak in many ways because they don't take basic precautions as a way or standard of living that we take for granted and we don't think is really proper or even civilized. Yes, we use that word if you don't do certain things. Bathing, brushing your teeth, using some sort of toilet paper, whatever gets you off, whatever you want to call it, but do something. There's other things like, wash your hands a couple of times a day. So here's a couple real examples of what I would go through. And this was anywhere in India. I love, of course, boiled eggs. I love them. So I would have here and there, one or two a day or, a couple a week. And I don't take the time to make them myself. And they sell them everywhere. And what they do is they have these big vats of eggs that are boiled. The problem is that they don't remove the chicken crap on the eggs. I'm not making this up. So I would ask them, why are you boiling these eggs when they're full of chicken crap, the stuff that came out when the chicken did his thing or whatever? Why don't you wash them first? And then they just laugh. Like that was the funniest question they'd ever heard. And I'm really serious because I don't want to eat this, especially when I'm looking in this pan of boiling water. And again, it wasn't one example. It's every friggin' time, folks. The eggs do crack and break open as a process of being boiled. They're not always perfect. Who hasn't boiled an egg and it breaks open, a little earlier than you wanted to and starts leaking out there because, you broke the egg when it fell or it just boiled and split, whatever. It's physics. Okay, well, imagine there's, crap on it and that's getting in there and all that. And then he's going to hand it to you and say, 5 rupees, sir. And, at this time there was 68 rupees to the dollar. You can do the math. So I would go up and say, I would like 12 eggs with no bird crap on them. I would use the S word instead. I won't say it here because they understood that word and actually respected it better than saying the word crap. So I would say, I want eggs without bird, what on it. Starts with an S, ends with a T. And they'd laugh and say, okay. And then this one market, God bless it, right up the street. And this was the one surrounded by the marijuana plants up there. Hemp grows everywhere. It's like, it really is weed over there. It's everywhere and nobody smokes it. And I joke with the Indians. I say, you're the only country that grows hemp naturally and you just don't turn it into profit. You could corner the hemp textile market if you bothered, but they don't. So in the middle of this marijuana hemp surrounded, side of the road is this little place that made these eggs and all that. So they actually would have for me clean eggs waiting, and that was great. And then the store, because I moved in this compound that was a luxury apartment, they started carrying toilet paper just because I was the only Gora there. That's what they call white people, Gora. Okay, fine. I got toilet paper. I'm happy. So this is what it's like over there, and it's normal. And because they don't wash their hands, they don't practice a lot of hygiene. And you have to also factor in the weather. When I would come home from work and I would change clothes, if I hung something up, 3 or 4 days later, if I didn't make a point to take it down or wash it, I would see some mold or something starting to appear on clothes that were 3 or 4 hangers down that I never even touched. And I'm like, where did this come from? It was like hopping. So you sweat because it is so humid there. It is ridiculously humid where the moment you go outside, you're doomed. It's just human nature. At least in the United Arab Emirates, you only have to worry about the time it takes from building to building. That's just physics. But in India, well, if the power's even working all day, you're lucky. That's in an advanced city like Chandigarh. And then, of course, if it isn't working, the ACs wouldn't start anyway. And everybody has a generator on the roof, which is diesel fueled. That's great for the environment. It's made probably in the 1940s by the British with a lot of these places. And it is diesel fueled, and you have to keep your canisters handy because the power goes out all the time. When I lived in Ludhiana, it would go out 8 to 10 times a day. I'm not exaggerating, especially during the summer. And that's the way it is. So this is the standard of the most populated part of the world. We keep hearing China's a superpower, an emerging superpower. Yeah, kind of ironically, like communist Russia was, in that they had a very powerful army and big nuclear weapons, but they couldn't feed their people. So guess what happened, folks? And it collapsed. The Russian leaders must be kicking themselves in their graves, thinking, wow, we should have thought of manufacturing for the decadent West. They'd still be in business, folks, but no, China combined good old capitalism, wanting to make that money, corner markets, global control, because you control the resources, you control manufacturing, you control the world, duh, hello, in an industrialized society, in a profit-motivated society. And then you combine that with communism and socialism and what is really totalitarianism, and you have what China is today, the world's most populous, successful, totalitarian, capitalistic country with a dictator for life until he doesn't want the job. They rewrote the Constitution to make sure that happens. Just the same kind of stunt that, Putin's pulling off now in Russia. So add Russia in there, which is another pollution nightmare. And they still haven't cleaned up stuff from the communist eras. There's entire areas up in the Siberian region that if you go there, you're dead. And they don't care. If you don't believe me, look them up on the internet. Go there and send me a postcard. I'll never get it. They may find it on your dead you-know-what, but you won't survive. So that is Russia, China, India. Do the math on the population, folks. Add it all up and compare it to the population of the EU and throw in America and Canada, and you still got nothing by comparison. China is so committed to the Paris Accord that they've announced that they will be the world's #1 coal power. They've tied the U.S. Next year, by the end of this year, they will surpass the U.S. And they're adding another 450 or so coal plants. Wow. Can you imagine how many more they would build if they didn't sign that all-important earth-saving Paris Accord? Wow. I mean, the math is just amazing, folks, how that works. It's a complete fraud. And now we come to the markets. Anyone who's been to Asia, it's not just China, it's also Taiwan, their standard of hygiene is wrong. It kills people needlessly. Culturally, like a colleague of mine has told me many times when she lived in Thailand, they would be in a river bathing. Then there would be a person above them bathing, another one above them, another one above them. And you had to be careful where you stood in that bathing line, because if three guys up, he's really dirty or doing whatever, that's coming down on you, a couple people later. That's what they do there. We don't do that as a rule in the West. I noticed in India, nobody washed their hands as a rule regularly except me. In addition to your sweating all day. So yeah, I want to wash my hands. I look forward to the cold water on my hands. Well, they're used to it. They sweat all the time. I would say every time I shook the hands of the average person in Asia, regardless of where, because of the weather there, let's be honest, the palms were always very sweaty. The houses there, they're not coated with anything to keep bacteria from forming mold. They just don't do that. So there's a lot of more dangerous stuff in the environment that is so close to killing you and is a constant threat. It's in conflict with your body. It's amazing even more people don't die. And that's before you throw in man's stupidity, where he's got pollution and coal and gas-fired whatever. That combination is just wrong. So let's explain after the break how hygiene played a role in spreading the virus. And then let's talk about the idea of, was it a military project?
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by REL-MAR, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hides' life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Kal's Corner Radio Show and the X Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff. I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is, of course, Rob McConnell. Now, to wrap this up in the final segment here, again, we have an outbreak that is global. It is in many countries. It keeps growing. It shows no sign of slowing down, meaning it continues to spread. Whether it's one case here, 17 cases here, it's going in one direction. It is spreading. The World Health Organization is saying, well, it's not quite serious enough to justify declaring it a global emergency. The world's only superpower, the USA, for right or wrong, is saying it's our emergency, a national emergency. And by that dynamic, you would think that the World Health Organization would say, well, I guess we're going to have to go along with this because you are the world's only superpower. And it's kind of obvious based on the dynamics of the USA, its racial makeup and so on. There's a lot of Asian people from areas coming in and out of the USA, as has been proven so far, who got this disease. A lot of them didn't know it because one of the key parts of this disease is that it doesn't immediately show signs that you're infected. You can go 3 to 5 days, maybe 7, before you think, wow, something really is wrong. And by then, it might be too late. You're not going to recover. They don't know. Now, what I did a couple of days ago, and I sent Rob this data, and I'm going to trace this down, and I'm going to send it to Rob. Again, I'm not the only one who is working with Rob on things. I identified a case in China as one of the early cases that's very fascinating here. Regardless of what the cause is, this is interesting. And I'm not an expert on this. There is a house in China. It belongs to a family. They all live there. And all 5 of these people, same family, got the disease. Now, you say, well, where's the surprise? Well, the surprise is this. When they did a DNA sequence analysis, and this is in the government database, I sent, again, Rob, a screenshot of this. And by the way, when I went to share this data with a colleague who was a scientist to make sure, hey, is this really accurate? And I'll explain why in a minute. As I also let Rob know, Facebook sends me a message that says I'm violating their guidelines. Well, I haven't heard that one in years. Okay, so here I am trying to share data from the U.S. official government database a few days ago with Rob, and they're telling me, and also my science guy, and they're telling me, no, you're violating the guidelines. And this is direct messaging. It's not on a page. And I'm like, okay, boy, is Big Brother not listening, right? So anyway, when I'm in the database, what I saw was that this one family, all 5 got it, but they had 5 different distinct mutations. Think about that. Were they 5 separate attack points, meaning different mutations, different parts of town? They all got infected because, they work in different areas, were gone during the day, whatever. Or was it the same virus that mutated per instance of each of the people it attacked? I don't know. But I think that's an issue that needs to be run down because let's say that it mutates every time that it hits you. And there are scientists saying it does that. Others are saying, no, it's not that simple. Well, that is an automatic potential for being weaponized. Think about it. It doesn't matter what the virus is. If it mutates every time it hits somebody, comes into contact with somebody, it's a different guy. It's a moving target forever until it doesn't do that anymore. The physics are obvious. That is a key milestone in how to make a virus very effective, very hard to fight, and a perfect weapon. Let's be blunt. Now, I'm not saying this is the only virus that does it. What they are saying, and I'm not the expert, look it up, is that this has never happened before that they know of, where it has jumped from species like snakes and bats into people. On the other hand, because of the way China has its open meat markets, and they shut down that whole area, but it hasn't stopped it. In other words, they've removed the source, they say, of the virus, but it hasn't stopped the virus. So what is going on? Well, if it's mutating every time it hits somebody, well, good luck. Now, there is a military bioweapons lab in the province there. There's no question. It's public knowledge. This is not to say they did it, okay? Not to say that at all. The proof is not there. But this is another issue that is going to be looked at because enough people in the public want to know, and we need to know one way or another. China is being praised by some people for being transparent. Compared to what? Mud? Meaning the mayor of the province has said the first attacks occurred earlier in December, over 2 weeks earlier than the communist government officially admitted. He was ordered by the party, he says this, you can look it up, not to say anything. And then they decided, coincidentally, of course, that on New Year's Eve, while the rest of the world was partying and celebrating whatever, we have a problem, Houston, or whatever, Wuhan. So that is not the definition of transparency. Now, they have been more open because, like Rob saw today, I saw today, a source sent me video of bodies in the streets all over. And they're just lying there, either dead or on their way. Point is, they have to be picked up. A lot of people are just standing around filming them with their cell phones, of course. That's good, but it's also bad. You don't want them to, what can they do? They can't help. It's a deadly disease, and they may get it, they may not. We don't know. We don't know. That's the problem. So we will hopefully find out whether the mutation cycle is part of the way the virus is, or was it weaponized, or could it be weaponized? And of course, China and Russia love breaking treaties and making biological and chemical weapons. They signed treaties saying they don't do that anymore. It's pure lies. It's never been true. Let's be blunt about it. The U.S. actually and Great Britain have stopped a lot of that because they kept their word. But the consequence is they have a security vulnerability now because the other side, the bad guys, so to speak, have weapons that the West does not. Now, what has to find out, too, is another claim, and this happened today. I received information from a source who says that there's data indicating that this virus has been patented or was patented in the past. Well, that's interesting. Why? Who would do it? Well, they're saying Bill Gates did it. So I've been sent data, which I have yet to look at. I will do it. I'll share it with Rob. It addresses another rumor out there that is on fire in the Middle East. I've heard it from many people. And I said, send me the data. I'll look at it. And it arrived. And I said, well, I got to get ready for the show. It's hot stuff. I don't know what's in it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to share it with Rob. But it says basically that this virus, or what did it, was patented. Well, what does that mean? You see, folks, let's say that the virus did come from the weapons lab. It could have gotten on one or two people who left and contaminated whatever. They could have gone to the meat market. Wherever they would go would have spread. It could have been that they didn't know they themselves were contaminated, because you don't know until it's too late. See, we don't know. But what we must settle for is only the truth, nothing but the truth, as they say, and the whole truth, because we have to learn from this. If there is a virus that can mutate every time it touches something, then science needs to find a way to deal with that, regardless of how or why that was done. If it was artificially done, genetically engineered, created in a lab, tweaked, whatever, then we need to know that too and put a stop to it, or at least unmask it and lay before the world that, hey, this is what's going on, just like rogue nukes. It's better knowing than lying and denying. So it's going to be interesting now to see what happens, because we need to run these pathologies down, these histories, and I have every confidence that the answers will come in the database. But if we can call up some of these scientists and talk to them now and say, look, do you have any idea going forward? When will you? The sooner the better. The sooner the public is informed, the better it is that misinformation, disinformation, wrong information that can get people killed will hopefully be, reduced on the internet out there, and especially social media. And we have to be honest, Communist China is a dictatorship. They're not going to be open and transparent about everything. At least their dictator has admitted, Houston, we have a problem. He's admitted it is a problem. But how farther is it going to go? Are they going to do the things they need to do, such as cure the fundamental health standard hygiene problems? I predict they won't, because ultimately they don't care. India doesn't care. Russia doesn't care. It's been my experience that when you care and you care enough, you do something about it. That's the difference between caring and not caring, doing and not doing. There's a reason those words exist. There's a reason those concepts exist. And if you don't get real with them, then it's your problem. But don't make it the world's problem. And it is a global world, whether we want to admit it or not. It is a global community, for better or worse. And if we don't manage it right, we are doomed as a species. And to be blunt, we deserve it. If you don't manage the thing properly, then you don't deserve to manage it. It doesn't matter what it is. And in this case, it's only our planet, only our existence, right? So this is a watershed moment. for this global community to finally do its job and use this crisis to face it the way it should be. If China's guilty of wrongdoing, nail them, make sure it doesn't happen again. If they're not, fix the problem regardless of the cause. That's really all I have to say. Unscripted, from the heart, whatever, based on travel experiences, firsthand observations, and my limited knowledge of this stuff. But we're going to push it forward, find out the who, the where, the why, the when, the how, report it, share it, and you can count on the information from us. Thank you.